I don't have too much time today, but I'd like to start this video off by reading out the Nuremberg Code, or at least part of it. If you've never heard of the Nuremberg Code, allow me to read the introduction. The judgment by the War Crimes Tribunal at Nuremberg laid down 10 standards to which physicians must conform when carrying out experiments on human subjects in a new code that is now accepted worldwide. This judgment established a new standard of ethical medical behavior for the post-World War II human rights era. Amongst other requirements, this document enunciates the requirement of voluntary informed consent, and they've highlighted that. Voluntary informed consent of the human subject. The principle of voluntary informed consent protects the right of the individual to control his or her own body. This code also recognizes that the risk must be weighed against the expected benefit and that unnecessary pain and suffering must be avoided. This code recognizes that doctors should avoid actions that injure human patients. The principles established by this code for medical practice now have been extended into general codes of medical ethics worldwide. The title of this document, the Nuremberg Code, 1947, okay? This is when it was established. I wasn't around back then, and I'm assuming neither were you. And while we didn't learn everything about World War II in school, I think we all learned enough to understand that what happened in Nazi Germany was pretty atrocious. Atrocious is the wrong word when you're describing the slaughter of over 6 million people, okay? That just doesn't happen by accident. That was a step-by-step incremental approach to basically brainwash the citizens and turn some citizens against others. They created a two-tier society, okay? And this is exactly what's happening here in Canada right now. Allow me to carry on. Permissible medical experiments. And I'll stop. Why am I saying experiment? You might be thinking to yourself, well, he's talking about a treatment that was approved by Health Canada or approved by the FDA or whatever. No. Experiment, okay? Experiment until the year 2023. This was approved for emergency use, and if you look around, I don't see much of an emergency. The great weight of the evidence before us to effect that certain types of medical experiments on human beings, when kept within reasonably well-defined bounds, conform to the ethics of the medical profession generally. The protagonists of the practice of human experimentation justify their views on the basis that such experiments yield results for the good of society that are unprocurable by other methods. Other methods. I won't insert the methods that have been offered to the general population in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, whatever. But those methods were banned, outlawed, not allowed to be used. The protagonists of the practice of human experimentation justify their views on the basis that such experiments yield results for the good of society that are unprocurable by other methods or means of study. All agree, however, that certain basic principles must be observed in order to satisfy moral, ethical, and legal concepts. I'm going to focus on the first 3 points, okay? There are 10, I'll call them 10 rules, 10 codes, whatever you want to say, but there's 10 specific rules related to this document, and I'm only going to focus on 3. But rest assured, Canada has violated all of them. Number 1, the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. This means that the person involved should have legal capacity to give consent, should be so situated as to be able to exercise free power of choice without the intervention of any element of force, fraud, deceit, duress, overreaching, or other ulterior form of constraint or coercion, and should have sufficient knowledge and comprehension of the elements of the subject matter involved as to enable him to make an understanding and enlightened decision. If we rewind to recent history, how many of us were told, hey, you don't participate in this experiment, you can't work here. Therefore, you don't have a job. You can't travel. Okay? I mean, the list goes on. How are you affected? We're not talking about the past, though. At some point, I'll focus on what's still happening right now. This latter experiment requires that before the acceptance of an affirmative decision by the experimental subject, that's us, there should be made known to him the nature, duration, and purpose of the experiment, the method and means by which it is to be conducted, all inconveniences and hazards reasonably to be expected, and the effects upon his health or person which may possibly come from his participation in the experiment. Okay. The duty and responsibility for ascertaining the quality of the consent rests upon each individual who initiates, directs, or engages in the experiment. It is a personal duty and responsibility which may not be delegated to another with impunity. So no, I'm sorry, all of you doctors, officers, whoever out there is just blindly following government orders without questioning a damn thing. Okay? Yes, you're not immune from punishment. Okay? Because as time goes on, your actions are going to look very poorly on you, while my actions and everyone else who's resisting, it's going to age like fine wine. You understand? Number 2. This is bad. The experiment should be such as to yield fruitful results for the good of society, unprocurable by other methods or means of study and not random and unnecessary in nature. So it mentions that in the intro, and it mentions it again. Were there alternative treatments that could have been made available to us that we were denied? Right? And then led to an experiment. This is the only way out, guys. This is the only way out. This is the only way out, and here we are. Number 3. The experiment should be so designed and based on the results of animal experimentation and a knowledge of the natural history of the disease or problem under study that the anticipated results justify the performance of the experiment. Now, when it comes to this particular experiment, what happened to the animals? I'll pose the question just out here, and maybe someone can answer that. Did the animals survive? Did they perhaps skip animal testing? You tell me. And I'll just add number 4 because I'm just staring at it. The experiment should be so conducted as to avoid all unnecessary physical and mental suffering and injury. Boy. How do you think we've done so far, Canada, in this regard? Now, if you think, what the Nuremberg Code in 1947, what does that matter? That's a big deal. I'm going to revert to when this was created. 1947, right after World War II. Okay? Trying to establish some human rights. This is to avoid a future World War situation, right? So here we go. As you can see, I'm an officer with the Canada Border Services Agency, and I refuse to participate in this nonsense because this is a crime against humanity. Okay, I'm speaking to officers who are participating in this nonsense. This is a crime against humanity and it has to stop. I've received several outrageous messages with people just telling me their stories of what happened to them, things they wish they had known, so on and so forth. And I'm going to read this one particular email because it just, one, it's embarrassing to read that officers are still behaving like this in 2022, 2.5 years later. And it's outrageous. So here we go. I won't say who wrote this. I saw your video on entering Canada without ArriveCan. If you don't know what ArriveCan is, that's an application that you are being told you must have on your phone where you submit all of your personal information, including your medical status regarding this experiment. And if you refuse, you'll be threatened with a fine. Here we go. My sister and I came back this evening with our combined 6 children. So we've got 2 females and 6 children. And we were surrounded by 3 officers when we declined to speak to PHAC, which is the Public Health Agency of Canada. My instructions to you are when you get referred to speak with PHAC, treat them like they're invisible. And just walk right past them. They're nothing. We followed all of your advice, but of course they threatened to arrest us if we declined to speak with them. We weren't sure if they were going to actually do this. The children were getting scared, so we decided not to put them through watching their moms get arrested. I'm not even sure that they would go through with it, but the 3 police officers they called on us assured us that they could and they would. I think they've cracked down even harder. Disgusting. Anyways, we received over $20,000 in monetary penalties between our 2 families. They even fined the children. Obviously, we are going to contest these fines, and in your opinion, should we pick option 2, which is early resolution, or option 3, which is trial? If you receive one of these fines, or when you receive one of these fines, under no circumstances should you pick early resolution. That is a finding of guilt, and you will pay a monetary penalty, and while they will reduce the amount from $6,500 or $5,000, whatever it is, you're still going to be coughing up a few $1,000s for doing absolutely nothing wrong. The one who wrote you the ticket is committing the crime. So we need as many trials as possible, and it sounds like that's what's happening. Everyone I've spoken with who's received one of these tickets has yet to be scheduled a court date because they are so backlogged. So we need more of that, okay? Collect your tickets with pride. I promise you they will go nowhere. You will not have to pay this penalty. And just wait until we get judges looking at how outrageous the situation is, okay? I'm telling you, I have never in my career seen anyone fined $6,000 in monetary penalties, and I put some bad people in jail, okay? Very bad. Pedophiles. People coming here to murder someone with a loaded gun. Yeah, charge $1,500 in penalties and just kick back to the United States. Outrageous. This is unacceptable. And if you'd like to somehow add your voice to this and make it known, please go to standforthee.com. It's a wonderful resource, okay? They've gathered as many resources as they can to try and help us understand our rights, understand what to do, and who to contact if we have a complaint regarding this stuff. Transport Canada, in this moment in time, has dropped the requirement to provide any sort of proof of your vaccination status regarding this experiment in order to board an airplane. So why is it that when you leave Canada and when you come back, the Canada Border Services Agency is the only governmental department currently committing a crime against humanity? Officers, I know you're watching this and you're probably making fun of me and talking shit and whatever. Snap out of it. Snap out of it. Do a little bit of research. Tiny bit. Tiny bit, and you'll understand why this is so outrageous. Go out of your way and talk to one person. One person. One mom. One dad, whoever. Okay? Anyone who's lost their job, lost their livelihood while you got a fucking raise. Okay? It's outrageous. And this has to stop. Has to stop. I'm not going to sit here and provide solutions at this moment in time. We have to be very careful about where we post these things and how we do it. Because while this system is unbelievably slow, dysfunctional, and pathetic to make any sort of change, once they realize what we're doing, yeah, absolutely, then they start to tighten things up and make things difficult for us. So, as it stands right now, travel.gc.ca. This is where you can find all of the current restrictions and mandates and nonsense that is used to terrify you, well, into getting a shot, one, but at this point, it's not about the jab anymore. It's about the app. An internal email, which I wasn't supposed to see, but I saw it. Thanks, guys. Is now advertising to Border Services officers that soon, this ArriveCan app is going to be part of the regular customs and immigration process. So eventually, just like right now, we've all accepted that a passport is required, soon it's going to be your digital ID. ArriveCan. They're already integrating it as an option. How wonderful, right? How wonderful. For your benefit, guys. Oh, this is so easy. I can fill everything. I can fill out my declaration here, get it all done. If you're an officer, for one, and you like your job, this should concern you because this is all about automating the border experience, right? It's about getting rid of you guys. Yeah. Automated services. We've already got automated border kiosks, and eventually it's going to be this application where you submit your declaration and the computer says one thing or the other and people just follow along. Okay? So you guys are enforcing yourselves out of a job for one, and you're ruining the economy and you're ruining our society. Cut it out. Take a look around and look at the damage. What's inflation looking like right now? Pretty awful. And what's it going to look like in 3 years when it really hits us? As in, if we were to just stop printing money right now and spending it on nonsense, it's still going to devastate us like you would not believe. At this point, I'm just begging officers to stop. Use your fucking head. Even if you look at the most fear-mongering government threat about this fine, it mentions that you have discretion. Why is that? Why is that, guys? It's for when the lawsuits start piling up. The more and more people that go to trial and we start filing class action lawsuits against you guys, you'll be personally named. You think they're going to back you up? This fucking agency? No. I'm going to calm down, close this computer for a second, and I'll see if there are any questions that I can answer. I do have to go. Please post your experiences, your questions, whatever, in the comments. Ignore the haters. I have a lot of them.